Good afternoon, Jan.
Michael, good afternoon. How are you?
Doing well. Doing very well. Glad to see that you're back in your usual space.
Holiday is finished.
Mhm. So how was it?
Holiday is finished. It was quite well. We had good weather just until the last day, and then it started raining. So it was very good, and we left with no regret because it was raining. So
Yeah, that's perfect
okay,
timing. You show up, enjoy the sun. Oh,
mm,
starting to get
yeah.
rainy. Let's get out of here.
But so in meanwhile, back to work. Got some things finished, which were quite urgent. So finished them last night.
Mm-hmm.
And this morning there was already another customer knocking on my door. A discussion with their security department.
Oh no.
Yeah. And yes, somewhere I'm sending an update code for some old Sentinel keys
Mm-hmm.
um, over the internet. It's a tool that I developed in 2003 to help them update their keys. Just add
Hmm.
some points, some credits to the keys.
Yeah.
So that's a code that can only be used with a particular key
Mm-hmm.
and only once, and that code is encrypted. So at the time it went over HTTP,
Oh, okay.
and it still goes over HTTP,
Mm-hmm.
and security is
Yes. Understandable. What's
yeah,
this? Let's
but
have a conversation here.
but the,
Mm-hmm.
the big problem is that that same customer is three versions behind because they don't want to pay for updates.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So um, it's always complicated.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's better than not having customers to begin with. So
Yeah.
at least you have a good problem.
Well, yes. But the main problem will be to convince them to pay for updates.
Yes.
Um, but okay. Anyway, I
Hmm.
will have to convert it one time for my other customers as well because on on itself it's nothing bad because it's just for the key itself, and that key
Hmm.
doesn't contain any information. There is no confidential information that passes,
Hmm.
and it's not about a lot of money. And the key is encrypted itself, but it
Hmm.
makes such a bad impression to the customers, uh, to the
Yeah.
security people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay.
That is understandable. Yeah. And then there are the other factors that TLS takes care of, like um, uh, having some verification that the server that you're talking to is actually the right server, and you don't have a man in the middle attack. Um,
Mm,
so um, so yeah, I can understand them saying, okay, well, yeah, you've solved these problems, but then what about these problems? Are they solved as well? And it could be that you reason through them and you say, okay, that attack vector is closed as well, because it's encrypted and only this server would have the key, and therefore, um, if there were a man in the middle attack, they wouldn't be able to decrypt it. They would just be able to send it on, and then they wouldn't be able uh, to transform the message on the way back because the return is encrypted with a key that only you have.
mm,
So you might have yeah all the problems solved, but yeah, having a standard like TLS where you know many people have looked at it over and over again and say,
mm.
yes, we have solved these problems, and have you thought about this one? Oh, there's a vulnerability in
Yeah.
TLS 1.2. Let's upgrade to TLS 1.3. Okay, yeah, there's.
The good thing is that it follows a standard, and
Mm-hmm.
and of course these people cannot look into each problem individual, so they have to create
Mm-hmm.
rules for the whole company. So from their point of view, I do understand it, um, but there is a cost involved in all
Yes.
that. Um, and you want updates, yeah, you have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everything can be done, but it's not automatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And time's not free.
Good.
Excellent.
So after that, I had a look into after all that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It should be before all that, but it was after. I had a
Priorities.
look into Jinaga.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that you already updated the SQLite and you packaged it,
Yes.
which is a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
SQLite package is published.
I found my code back. It was just in another branch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and indeed the UTC, everything was well saved as UTC. So the only problem is if you parse a date,
Mm-hmm.
if there is no Z behind it, the Zulu behind it,
Oh, okay. That's
it
all it
will
takes.
store it. It will store it as it will convert it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it will store it as a local time. So the date kind will be local.
Okay.
And of course, when we get it back from the SQLite, the date kind will be UTC.
Right.
And
Right.
so your solution to universal time was perfect.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Uh,
So, are there any changes in your branch that you would want to apply to what we've
no,
got?
I didn't.
Okay.
Um, the way you solved it and the way you incorporated in the code was okay.
Okay.
Um, and I think you started from that branch because the in that
Yes.
branch the save load and save MRU date were already in that branch.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
the portion that I was missing last time. Wait, where was that code? No, it's on the other side. So save and load bookmark were there a long time ago, and then set MRU date, get MRU date was what I last added.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was in GitHub as well. Yeah, it must
Yes.
have been there because that was part of the testing code. That was the code we were testing. So no, that was fine. Then the next step that I tried was installing the blog MAUI.
Mm-hmm.
And there I have a very strange thing. It tells me the current .NET SDK does not support targeting .NET 7.0. And that's strange
Okay.
because I have the SDKs 7.0 loaded. So there was not much time left to find out what was the problem. But if I just do what was the command .NET list SDKs,
Mm-hmm.
then it shows me version 2, 3, 5, and 7.0.402. 7.0.402. Are you using something else? So that's .NET space dash dash list dash SDKs.
Okay. Da-da-da. Let's see. Yeah, it's saying .NET list. Um, okay, got the dash dash in the wrong place. Yeah, what was that again? So .NET space, then dash dash
.NET
list.
space dash dash list dash SDKs with an S.
Yeah, it's saying
And
it's
then
having trouble with the .NET dash dash list. It's expecting another verb in there.
I will just share that screen. Which one is it? That one, I guess. Yeah. So you have the command on top, .NET space dash dash list.
Okay. Oh, okay. I put a space after lists. Okay, there we go.
Mm.
Yeah, so now I am seeing. Uh, there we go. Yeah, so now I'm seeing the latest one is 7.0.402.
Which one? 7.402.
7.0.402.
That's the one I have.
Interesting. And then the uh, the Visual Studio version that you're running. It might
Let
be
me
that.
see.
So I am running.
Oh, he was opening that in 2019.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Now I see why. I would expect it to open it in automatically in 2022. Open with Visual Studio 2022. That's going to be a complete different story then. I never expected that. Okay. Now let's run. Yeah, but it tells me here goes on Pixel. Wait, I will share that other screen.
Okay.
Put that on half. And share. Take that one. Last time I said better text readability. Yeah. Okay. So I've loaded it. Can we take? You were usually running it on an Android emulator.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I've been
Okay.
testing with. To run
Let's
it on
see
an
what it
iOS
has.
emulator, I would need to get a new Mac, which I intend to do soon, but haven't done yet.
Okay, he starts up the Android emulator. Oh, but yeah, he's running the emulator, but it just gives a black screen, the emulator itself.
Yeah, I might
But you
need
don't.
to. It might be booting up the operating system. So eventually, it should turn into a white screen with forming the G while it's loading the Android
Yeah,
operating system.
but it's a separate window that is not sharing apparently.
Right. Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
Right. I say change window. These are the controls.
Okay, it's switching.
Yeah, but it's black.
And yeah, that's exactly what I see. Just big old 2001 obelisk. Um,
It's
Interesting. Yeah,
still.
yeah. Usually we'll see the window, the phone Chrome around it.
I can set
Yeah.
the. I have all the extended controls here. Microphone, fingerprint, snapshots, record, settings, anything.
Okay, so it's
Display. I can add a secondary display if I want. Why is it not coming up as an Android?
yeah. So
if I
Trying
would,
it out on my side as well.
if I press the home button, no. Overview, nothing.
Yeah, after about 5 seconds, it switched from the black screen to the white screen, loading the G.
Oh, it should have been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Click the power button. Yeah. Just had to click the power button.
Okay.
You see it now? Is
Yes, I do.
it? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, turn it off and on again. That's the answer.
Yeah, but it's not.
Yeah, so we've got the
Oh,
splash screen.
no, I'm getting an exception here.
Hmm.
On the verify, but what is that?
Aha.
Oh, of course. I have no replicator running.
There we go.
Okay. This cannot work.
Well, hopefully
Oh,
the error message is helpful and leads you to the right place. That was my.
well, he stops in the source code now,
Mm-hmm.
and he tells me throw new exception. Please override setting in your own settings .local.cs, and it's if replicator URL equal to that standard replicator or that default your replicator. So okay, we getting further now.
Yep.
Well, what I could do is try to set up a replicator if we have time to do that.
Yes, I believe we do. Yeah.
So I go to the replicator. Show you that screen.
Okay.
Better text readability. Yeah. Why is that giving nothing here?
Okay, so it should be just dev.jinaga.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I copied from dev.
Yeah, repdev is where the replicator is ultimately hosted, but dev.jinaga.com is the portal. Very good.
Let's try this. My memory is not failing completely.
Yeah, there we go. So now the portal for the replicator as a service.
Yeah. Let's make what? Test November. No, test October. For development. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to copy this one. If we go to edit, then we go back there. Yeah,
Yeah,
and we
that
can
just
say
edits the name.
publish.
Mm-hmm.
Publish.
Yep. So prior to that, the URL was not live, but now it is. And that's to give you time if you want to set up your security before you go live.
Okay.
So as it is now, it is a wide open replicator database. So
Mhm.
anybody can create facts of any type and then run any kind of specification.
And then I can change authentication, authorization, and distribution.
Yes.
Okay. So now let's go back to change window. Go to Visual Studio. Is that one? Move that screen to there. So it was in settings.local. Where is that file?
It does not exist yet.
Okay.
So it's a file
Sorry.
that you'll want to create yourself.
Just whatever file.
Well, it should be called exactly settings.local.cs. and then it will slide into the right place um, in the project. There are some instructions. Um, so I'm looking for.
That is already created here. New item.
Yeah.
Settings. Local, not CS. App. Yeah, of course
Okay.
now.
Yeah, so I did publish a README for the blog MAUI project just moments before we started, so of course you don't have it yet. Um, but
And that one is on GitHub.
yes, yes. So I'll go ahead and put that.
Jinaga. And now I'm back to blog MAUI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
I
in
see
addition
it
to that,
here.
there were instructions in the comments inside of settings.cs.
So we have just to change all that in that.
Yep.
And then go back to my environment here. Change the whole thing. Okay, so
Yep.
that should work.
Yep. So now you're connected to the replicator for data. Yeah, that'll get you past that exception. It'll move on to the next problem. Bless you. But let's see what that next problem is.
More surprises. Right, then go back to change window. Let's go back to Android emulator. If I run, I'm out attempting to connect to the deployed application, rebuilding build. Oh, but I cannot rebuild. I have to stop it first.
Yeah, it should be working on the builds.
Say cancel and then rebuild solution. It says ready, but it's still doing something.
Yeah. Yeah, I never have understood that ready in Visual Studio. There we go.
Oh,
Yeah, so you've got the little
this one
animation saying
away.
it's building.
Yeah. At the bottom, there is a little animation, but at the side, it says also ready. So
Yeah. Is it ready? Is it building? What's going on? Which one of these should I trust?
it's, yeah, because here also we have this, here we have the animation, there we have the animation.
Yeah. And so while we're waiting, if you scroll up, there's some instructions as well in this file.
It's the properties do not check into source control. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So I
that's
already
what
have
we
a git ignore rule for that file. But yeah, the idea here is that you'll notice this is a partial class. The one that you created is also a partial class. So that means these are merged together. It runs the constructor, which is in your class, your half of the partial class. But it runs that after it initializes all of these properties. So it initializes it to the default value, and then your constructor overrides the default. And then by the time it calls verify, it's checking to see, did something actually override it, or is it still the default?
Okay. Rebuild all successful. So now I can start it. Let's see what the emulator is doing. Nothing for the moment.
Okay. Yeah, for the settings thing, I did find some instructions from James Montemagno on how to load a JSON file. But it looked complicated, and it also had the disadvantage that it's doing a whole bunch of JSON processing at startup. And so I was like, you know what? This solution is simpler and it's faster. Let's just do this.
Okay, change window.
Okay.
Demonstrate
Yay.
how to use Jinaga platform to build a mobile. To get started, log in using your Apple ID. But I don't have an Apple ID.
Oh well, that's yeah. That is going to be a blocker for the next portion. Um,
Uh,
so yeah,
so I
you'll
say
want
visitor.
um, yeah. So what you're seeing here, this is kind of the not logged in experience of your application. The
Mm-hmm.
idea is that we'll want the application to kind of be split into two halves, rather than just application starts and it says, hey, create an account. Um, Instead, yeah, that's not a really good experience. It's like if you visit a website and then the website just has a login page. Um, but instead, the website tells you a little bit about itself, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe lets you do some things as a visitor. So the idea here is that I wanted to demonstrate that in the application as well. So you've got the visitor tab and you've got the login tab, just as an example of a couple of things that the application could do. And so this is kind of demonstrating the architecture that I wanted to promote for
So
a
if I
Jinaga
press
application.
on visitor.
Yeah. So that's the active tab right now.
Ah,
Um, if
okay.
you were to click login, that would switch to the login tab, which right now is just a login button. Um, and
Yeah.
so
But
that,
then you can say turn on sync. No, thanks.
yeah. So since this is the first time that you've run the Google browser on this Android device, it
Yeah.
we did that for you. But um, then it takes you to notice repdev.jinaga.com. So it is going to um, the programmatic replicator endpoint.
Yeah.
Um, and right now it's just showing an error message because there are there are two things that you'll need an Apple ID for. One, as a user, you'll need an Apple ID so that you can log into the app. Um, I don't yet support Google authentication, but that is coming. Um, And then number two, as an application developer, you'll need an Apple ID, possibly the same one. I use a different one. Um, that is part of the Apple Developer Program that you can use to set up the authentication with Apple. So the Apple Developer Program is something that you have to pay annually for. So
Mm-hmm.
99 US dollars a year um, to Apple
Mm-hmm.
to be part of that program. But that program is how you then are able to deploy this to the Apple uh,
Yeah.
store. So
So for the moment, you need an Apple ID, otherwise the application doesn't work.
right, yes.
Yeah.
Um, so um, I can infer from all of this that right now DWS is just for Android,
Yeah.
and I think probably the next thing to get you going would be to now support sign in with Google. That way, as a Google developer, you can set up the sign in page, and then
Mm-hmm.
just using your Google ID or your um, yeah, it would really just be your Google login. Then, as an application user, you'd be able to log in. So yeah, I think that is the next step for us.
Because here, if I think other people as well are not always on Apple.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to try the example, or we could just provide an own login as well, an own login screen, which is not best practice, but at
Yeah,
least for the demonstration.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted this application to just be best practice. And so, if you are going to build an application and deploy it to either Apple or Google, then um, you're
Mm.
going to expect people to to be able to create their own accounts with it. Um, so the easiest thing for the for you as an app developer to do would be to use your native platform's identity provider for your
Mm.
users. So log in with Google. I think would be the best experience for the app that you build, as opposed to um, somebody going
Well,
through your site in order to create
mm.
an account.
Well, it depends because for the moment, DWS only runs on Android.
Mm-hmm.
So even the login system is Google independent. So no no best practices,
Mm.
but I think we should change that. But the purpose of MAUI is that it will run on Android and on Apple as well.
Mm-hmm.
So then people running on Apple, they log in with their Apple account. People running on
Yes.
Android will log in with their Google account.
Yes. Yeah, that is the intent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Right now, since I've just implemented login with Apple in order to get us to this
Mm.
point as quickly as possible, um, uh, there's no switch. But once I implement login with Google, then there will be the switch. So as the application
Mm.
developer, you'll set up both, and then as the
Yeah.
user, you'll see the one that's native to your platform.
Okay.
So
Good, but
yeah, which means that
yeah,
you as
yeah.
an application developer starting with Android, you can just set up the Android login and then just
Mm.
deploy it to Android, um, and then everybody
Mm.
will be happy.
Okay. That's so far we are getting already. That's a good thing.
Yep. But
Okay.
I can show you how everything is working um, now with the SQLite library
Mhm.
installed.
Because now we can work disconnected as well,
Yes,
or
we
were there
can.
still bugs inside?
Yeah, we can work disconnected as well.
Because I saw in the GitHub that there were still some things you adapted. I think. Right, watch.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So yeah, I was following along on this side. Saw that.
Michael,
Mhm.
uh, you also with the sharing. I think you're choosing
Ah.
the default sharing mode, which is 30 FPS. But you could set better readability.
Okay.
So when you do sharing, then
Mm-hmm.
it shows you the window where you select the screen,
Uh-huh.
and then at the bottom you can choose for smoother video or better readability.
Okay.
If you take better readability, I think he increases the resolution and he decreases the fields per second.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. So how
Yeah,
does that look?
that looks even better.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you for that. All right. Yeah. So we already talked about setting up the settings. Um, then the the next thing that we were then looking at was what does the application experience look like? So let me go ahead and get that started on my emulator.
Okay, you share the full screen and not the window. That's why we see the emulator.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I shared
Yeah.
just half of my screen.
Yeah.
So the window, which is off. Yeah.
I have a multi-monitor setup that um, I've set up one monitor to be lower resolution, specifically for
Mm.
sharing and for recording. Um,
Yeah.
So yeah, it did that specifically for Pluralsight, and then it's like, hey, let's use that for everything. Okay. Something. Oh, okay. It seems to do this quite frequently. It complains about the workload. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my projects folder. Jinaga. What did I call it? There it is. Jinaga samples. Log MAUI, and then .NET work. Well, if I do a .NET build, then I should see the same error message here. Yep, and it tells me to run .NET workload restore, which I do about once a month. And it says WASM tools is already installed. Yes, I know. I installed it last month.
Machine has a pending reboot.
Yeah, it also says that every time that that I run this command. And usually it works without rebooting anyway. But I don't know, maybe it has checked upstream and found that there are some dependencies it needs to download. Maybe some new versions of... But it says WASM tools. And yeah, honestly, I'm not even sure why MAUI is dependent upon WASM at all. But cross-platform, WASM is a cross-platform protocol just usually used in the browser. Maybe they just said, hey, let's use that protocol.
Okay. If it works that way and you have to do it once a month.
Yeah. But always at the least convenient
the wrong
time.
moment.
I guess there is no convenient time. Working. All right, so, but yeah, while that's going, let's at least explore some source code. So what I wanted to demonstrate was the user experience. So it starts with this app shell. So shell is an organizational construct inside of MAUI that lets you organize the different components of your application, and then it controls navigation and also the so navigation in terms of what different pages are available, and also the routing to those pages, and the user interface for the user to actually perform that navigation. So one option is tab bar, and so that's the thing that you saw on the bottom where you had the visitor tab and the login tab. And the other one is flyout, so where you've got the navigation structure that comes in from the side. So starting with the simple application, wanted to use the simpler one. If you have fewer than 4, tab bar is simpler. But you start to get more, then you want the flyout for that extra space. So I've got a tab bar for the route not logged in, and then another tab bar for the route logged in. And the thing that makes this work is this is visible binding. So it binds to state. Oh, that's a mistake. That should be app state. So it's... I wonder what that was doing then. So it binds to app state, and then it uses a value converter to compare app state with either logged in or not logged in. So if app state is equal to not logged in, then this one's going to be visible. Otherwise, the other one's going to be visible. So visibility not only controls which tab bar shows up at the bottom, but also which routes are available. So if you tried routing to a logged in route while the app state was not logged in, so while this was false, then even the routing command would fail. It would throw an exception. So visibility is controlling more than just visibility. So that gives me a kind of a guard for when app state is logged in versus not logged in, which pages are available. And then I've got this shell content right here at the top. You can see that the tab bar contains tabs which contain shell content. So shell content is kind of the leaf of this structure. But I've got one shell content all the way at the top. And it's the first one, which means it's the one that the application starts off with. And that is the gatekeeper. So the role of the gatekeeper is to load in your application state from the storage, and then figure out, are you logged in or are you not logged in, and then send you to the right place. So starting with, this is inside of authentication. We've got the gatekeeper page. You can see the page only has an error on it. So if that error is populated and it stays on the page, then you can see it. But error starts out as empty and should remain as empty. So it should just be a blank page until it's finished loading. And this is all loading from local state. So that loading should be pretty fast. So you should see the splash screen, a white page, and then it animates immediately into whichever experience you need. Okay. Successfully installed. Yeah, I already did run that. Okay. I'm going to have to mess with that a little bit
more. Reboot.
Yeah. So we'll just go over the architecture today. Okay, so gatekeeper view model. Initialize, which, by the way, gatekeeper page on appearing, it's going to call initialize. So when that page first appears, that calls initialize. This uses the always to be avoided async void. I often make the joke that they should just collapse these two keywords into one. Just call it a void. That way you know what to do with it. So avoid it. Okay, so the reason that this is async void is that it has to call some tasks, awaitable methods. Has to do some asynchronous stuff, but the caller on appearing, that's just a synchronous method, and there is no override for on appearing that is asynchronous. Maybe they'll add one at some point, but that's been an issue for many years, and they haven't even done that. So it'll probably be like this. But there's an easy solution, and that is always catch exceptions inside of your avoid methods. So if you throw an exception from an async void, that's when bad things happen. So here we're catching the exception, setting the error, and that means that it's going to stay on this page and show the error. But the idea is that we're going to initialize the authentication provider and the user provider, and then change the app state, either to logged in or not logged in. And then also, after changing the app state, we're going to go to either the logged in or not logged in route. So that is going to have the effect of both making the appropriate tab bar visible and navigating to it. Furthermore, I'm using // which in the MAUI shell navigation library, that means replace the current navigation stack with this. So start over at this point. So that takes Gatekeeper out of the navigation stack. So you don't have a back button once you get there to get back to the Gatekeeper, which would really just bounce you back anyway. So it would just be annoying, but no reason to come back to the navigator. So authentication provider and user provider. These are injected via DI. We already went over DI in MAUI. So the authentication provider, in fact, I think we went over this one in some detail. This loads the access token from secure storage. So if you have logged in the past, then that access token gets stored, and then initialize, loads it back in, checks to see that it hasn't expired, just by looking at the expiration date, not by actually trying to use it. And then says you have an access token, therefore you're logged in. Or no, you don't have an access token, or it has expired, and so you're not logged in. And then similarly, we initialize the user provider. You know what? Yeah, an expired access token means that the user provider should remain not logged in. Maybe I should change that. But so load user. That's going to secure storage and trying to load your public key. So the same kind of storage mechanism is used to that's used to load your access token. And we're storing your public key in there as well. And so if you have a public key, it creates a user object and returns it. So you don't have to actually be connected in order to create the user object. Let's just see if this is going to work. No, it's not. All right. Okay, so that's how it's initializing, setting the app state, and going to the appropriate experience. So if you're not logged in, the one that you saw is that you've got a visitor tab, you've got a login tab. I grabbed the icons from the Fluent system icons. So that's a font that I installed in here. So even shows you how to do that. And then that takes you either to the visitor page or the login page. So the idea is that I want you to build your own not logged in experience and put all of the pages that are necessary for that experience here. For the blog example, it might be a search page, so you can search for published blogs through this platform, and then maybe even go to those blogs and read a few articles. So a fully rich experience, but nothing that would require us to know who you are.
Yeah.
And then we've got the logged in experience. And so that's after you've actually logged in through the app. We've demonstrated that in previous videos. So you know what that excuse me. You know what that looks like, even if we can't run it right now. And that takes you to the post list, and then I've moved the log out capability just to the account page. So just kind of demonstrating that, let's go to, the account folder. So basically, I'm organizing the different regions of the application into different folders. So the account region is it's basically, this is where you would show things like the username, maybe if they've got a subscription, that would show up, that information would show up here. So this is how you would organize how the user account shows up in your app. But I've got the logout button, and the logout button is bound to the logout command on a relative source. So it's going to look for a binding context of type app shell view model. So this is going to look back up the whole visual tree yeah, and find that this is running inside of the app shell, and it'll find the view model tied to that app shell. And so if we go back to the app shell view model here, we can see that we've got commands for login and logout. So these commands are just available to every view that's in your application. You can just bind up the tree in order to find it. So this does the login with the application, the authentication provider that presents the login with Apple, or soon with Google, and then navigates you to the appropriate place. So basically, if you're on the visitor side, then you bind up the tree to login. If the user is successfully logged in, then it switches the app state. So now all of that visitor tab is removed from the navigation tree, and then the / removes all the visitor stuff that they did from the application's navigation stack. So now they are switched to the logged in experience. They have a brand new app stack starting with the first page in the logged in tab. Or vice versa, log out. We clear all of this stuff and then we go to log out. So that's the application login, log out experience. And strangely enough, there have been lots of people, on Stack Overflow, on Microsoft's forums, asking what does this look like for MAUI? It's very well documented for things like React Native. So if you use React Router, there's a pattern for what they call this an authentication guard. In fact, it's so well documented in Angular, if you search for authentication guard, you will just find a whole bunch of Angular examples. But in MAUI, it's like, well, figure something out. And people suggesting different pieces of it that I was able to put together. But nobody has, like, here's a complete working example. 2 separate tabs, only one is visible at any given time, and a gatekeeper to switch from one to the other. So once I'm happy with this, I'm going to go back to those sources and say, here's how you do it in MAUI.
Point them to Jinaga.
Yeah. As a side effect, yeah. We also solve a whole bunch of other problems, but this one problem you're looking for, here's a solution. You can replicate that pattern. So that's the first big part of this application architecture. The next part, which I was really hoping we'd be able to see today, is the Jinaga config. So Jinaga config used to do all of these steps all in one, and then get a Jinaga client out the end. I broke those steps into different pieces so that they would work with dependency injection. So you can get access to your authentication provider, and you can get access to your settings. But the big important part is that now we're using Jinaga SQL client create, and we're setting up the SQLite path.
Okay.
So just creating a file called blogdb in application data. So it's going to be local to your application, and that's going to persist all of the Jinaga stuff for your app. So that's all the stuff that you've already worked on, saving facts that were created by the user, running specifications locally, so you can get back the facts that are just in local storage. But then also there was one other feature that that I needed to add real quick, and so that was We were talking about MRU dates just a second ago. That was the queue. So this was something that was not even in the core library yet. It didn't have this as part of the iStore interface. But where is it? I wonder if I think I did that on a different machine. Let's go back here. Yeah, there we go. Go back to main. Oh, look at all those things that I'm buying. Clean up all my dead branches. Okay. Now we have execute, insert ancestors edge, load, read, save.
On top, add to queue, no?
Oh, add to queue at the very top.
One.
Yes, there we go. Okay, so so this is going to take a set of facts as the user is saving them. So you just called Jinaga client.fact, and so it's already saved it to the facts table, but now this is going to put them into the queue. So I created a queue table that really just has these fact IDs, and so it's going to look up those facts from the fact table because you just saved them, and then put their fact IDs into the queue table. So and then it's going to get all of the facts that are in the queue table. So if you just queued a few facts, but then there were still some other facts in the queue, it says, okay, here's all of them. Boom. That way the client can then take all of these facts and try to send them up to the replicator.
Okay, that's the queue.
Yes.
For facts stored to be sent to the replicator when you're disconnected.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So then...
And how was that done in Jinaga before, in JavaScript?
It wasn't implemented yet in JavaScript. So yeah, in JavaScript, I started with the React experience, and I was working on React Native. But in React, you're connected. So
yeah.
So yeah, I didn't go down that path yet. But yeah, even for React, we want to support PWAs. So wait a minute, no, that's right. It is implemented in the JavaScript. Yeah, I just hadn't gone down that path in .NET yet. But yeah, in JavaScript, it does support PWAs, and it uses IndexedDB. Wow, that was a long time ago. But yep, so yeah, you do have local storage in React if you install the app as a PWA. Or in fact, you navigate to the application, but then you get disconnected. You can still work with it, and it'll still store it in IndexedDB, and then when you're reconnected, it'll send them. So yeah, and then once it sends all those facts and gets confirmation they've been received, then it calls remove from queue and says these are the facts that I was able to send, and so it deletes all those fact IDs from the queue table. So this way the queue table stays nice and small, as opposed to something like putting a flag on the fact, because then I would basically be indexing a flag, and I would be relying upon Postgres to manage that index. It doesn't like to have indexes that are not very specific, so it's just like indexing a Boolean. Doesn't really like that very much. So basically, I'm creating my own index inside of a queue table, and so it's able to get just the facts that are in there, send them, then remove them. So yeah, I implemented that and saw that working. And then there's one last portion of that in that we talked about showing showing that background processing to the user in a way that makes sense to them. So there is now, inside of Jinaga Client, a way to subscribe to uh, there it is, Jinaga status changed. So I've created a delegate for that. So you say on status changed, it really just forwards it on to the network manager, which is really taking care of all that. But Jinaga status changed basically sends you a Jinaga status every time it's something interesting happens, and that Jinaga status is this collection of properties. So it tells you, is it in the process of loading? So maybe you can draw a little progress indicator. I'm connected and I'm actually doing loading.
Yeah.
Or is it in the process of saving?
Mm-hmm.
Then was there an error the last time we tried to load? Was there an error the last time we tried to save? And then on the save side,
Yeah.
what's the length of the queue?
Mm-hmm.
Which means that then, as an application developer, you can choose how to respond to that. So here, I've got an example of how to respond to that. I have the status, which starts as green. Maybe I'll actually change this so that the status starts as undefined and it waits until it really knows before it shows you the green status. But then after we load, or while we are trying to load, so so before we actually connect to the server, it connects on status changed to our method here. And so on status changed is going to receive that new status and then figure out what does red, yellow, and green mean for this application.
Yeah.
So the logic that that you recommended was that if the queue length is greater than 0, then it should be red.
Yeah.
So I added some extra conditions here. If you're in the process of saving, I don't want you to switch to red and then back to green just because you're saving. So so it's not red if you're currently saving. And if the last, so with last save error, this is the idea of, okay, so you are, you're not currently saving, so that means you tried to save, and so now is saving is false. So that would be enough to turn it to red. But let's suppose that now you restart the application, and you haven't tried to save yet. So in that case, the that's not right. What I was going for here is that in that case, you haven't tried to save yet, but the queue length is still greater than 1, so I do want to show red. Unfortunately, last save error will also still be null because you just started the application. So this isn't quite right, but we'll fiddle with that and make that right. So if you're not in the red status, then let's check to see, was there an error last time you tried to load? In which case we'll put you in yellow. Otherwise we'll show green.
Okay.
So so that's
exactly
basically
the pattern we discussed.
Yeah.
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 Michael, about the queue.
Mm-hmm.
So we are having a separate table for the queue, but what happens if for one or the other reason the two get out of sync? Because now we have our facts stored in our facts table,
Mm-hmm.
and the facts that have not been communicated yet are in the queue table.
Yeah, so it's really the queue table has a foreign key to the fact table, so the queue can't contain anything that hasn't been saved. And this inner join is basically going to, from fact where the hash is in the type, that's going to ensure that.
imagine that for one or the other reason, we would have facts which disappear from the queue and are not transmitted yet. The facts are still in the facts table. Is there a way to that it will recover from that error?
Yeah. So if so I think the answer is no, but then it's also I don't see how we would get to that state. But so if you have a fact in the fact table but it's not in the queue, okay, actually, wait a minute. Yeah, there is a way to get into that state now that I think about it. That's a good point. So let's talk about the network manager. So when we save, we're going to add. Okay, this is the network manager save is going to add facts to the queue. Let me show where this is used. So we'll start with the fact manager. So Jinaga client.fact basically starts here. So it's going to save them to the store, do all the notification to update the user interface, and then tell the network manager that I am saving these facts. And so then at that point, the network manager is going to add them to the queue. So if something interrupts the process here, then you've got facts in the fact table that are not in the queue. And that's the issue that you were just talking about. Yeah, that is a problem.
And so locally, you think that they have been sent to the server, but they never reach the server.
Yep.
So is there a way we can scan the facts table and know which facts have been sent already to the server?
Okay.
For example, by restarting the application, that we repopulate the queue.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Okay, so when we save, we have inside of the store. Let's actually go to the Jinaga store for SQLite implementation here. So when we save, that does the insert into the there it is, the fact table. So if there is a default, there's another column that's has it been sent to the server, and it defaults to false. So now we insert it with false. So we can never start in the bad state like we're starting in the bad state in this case. So now you've got that fact in there with sent to server being false. Then you come here, you add to queue, boom, and
it's
here
removed from the queue.
Yeah. So.
And then you set that state in the fact table to true.
Yeah. So the state in the fact table is the ultimate source of truth. So I could try two things. I could actually try indexing that that column and then just using that as the queue. See if that works well in SQLite. If that doesn't work well in SQLite, then we could still, when we initialize the application, scan the fact table for things that have not been sent and, as you said, repopulate the queue. So if there's anything that's not been sent but not in the queue, insert it to the queue and then move on. Yeah, good catch. Good catch.
Because here we have two truths, and
yeah.
All right. But then, because these are things which once you run into it, then the question is, where does it come from?
Yeah.
because it's such a dynamic error.
Uh-huh.
You probably discover long after it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the
Yeah.
advantage of that queue table, of having a separate queue table, is it just performance?
Yes. Yeah, that's the reason for it. So so I will switch this implementation to just use the column and not have a queue table at all, and then test performance. So yeah, so far I've just done really small data sets, so I really don't have a good measure for how badly or well that would perform. Um, but yeah, then I'll test performance of um, just the column, and then if there's a problem there, then I'll add the complexity back of having the queue table.
Because the synchronization is in the background,
Mm-hmm.
so data performance is not really critical, I think. Um, the most critical thing is when the user clicks clicks on the screen, um, that something happens immediately.
Yeah.
That the user interface reacts.
Yes, and I think actually they would see that performance because this is asynchronous, so you're waiting fact dot or
Mm.
Jinaga client dot fact, um, and so it has to get it into the queue before that resolves. Um, so if it doesn't resolve, then you've got the opportunity of showing the error to the user. Um, you might be relying upon status in order to put the error up there in the status bar, but it also will throw the exception here if you want to use it that way. But anyway, while it's still trying to save it into the network manager, um, which is at least currently also trying to save it to the replicator. It's got the you can have, as an application developer, you get to choose. You can have uh, the progress experience, like for example here in the post list view model. This is on load, but you could do the same thing around the save side. But I take the observer and monitor it. So basically, I'm taking a look at the cached and loaded uh, um, tasks, and until they're resolved, loading is going to be true, and it's going to show the progress indicator. So you're in control as an application developer how you want to show that. But what I often do on the save side is um, I'll have await Jinaga client.fact, um, and then when it resolves, at that point I can dismiss the user interface. So it might be a modal that they're typing their stuff into. They hit save, and then it's waiting until it actually commits that. Um, right now, commit means all the way to the replicator, or an exception occurs. But yeah, I I should also um, resolve this task even before we save to the network. I have to think through that, see how to make that work. But that way, it dismisses the modal as soon as it knows that it's been queued. But then the uh,
Well,
the network call
as
is still
soon as
happening.
as it is locally stored in the database,
Yeah,
that should be okay.
yeah, yeah. But going back to your original point, locally stored in the database. Uh, oh yeah, yeah. Locally stored in the database would not incur the performance hit of retrieving the queued facts,
Mm-hmm.
because that performance would be on the read side. Okay, and that I've got add to queue set up right now, it's both writing and reading. So yeah, I might even want to separate that here in this interface. So I can add a queue, know that it's been stored, and then release the user, and then load from the queue before calling save, and then remove from the queue, and all of that can be background. Okay.
Because if you are not connected, then you save something and you have to continue anyway working.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole queue process can be in the background and will stop anyway at the moment that you don't have a connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So some work to be done there. Speaking of work, I need to get to work. And
Okay.
it sounds like you've got clients calling you.
There was a call, but it was not something urgent.
Okay.
Okay, Michael, we'll see you next week.
No, actually, yeah, next week I'm afraid I am going to be out. So,
The week after.
So yeah, it'll be the week after.
You will be going to Halloween.
That's true. Yeah, yeah, we'll be. Yeah, next week it's going to be November 2nd. So yeah, it'll be after Halloween. But yeah, I've got some stuff to take care of that day, so it's going to interfere.
No problem.
Yeah.
So not next week, but the week after we see each other back.
Yes, indeed.
And then I will be in winter time. So that will be 2 p.m., not 3 p.m. at my side. Okay. Michael, see you then.
All right. Thanks, Jan.
Thanks a lot.
See you.
Bye-bye.